anger breathes loud, face reality. Never be charity. The enemy you're fighting covers all society. Damn right, mommy's not here, gonna fight all night. Right here, shadow 10 o'clock direction. Seize the moment, this destroy the nation. Your rhyme slow motion, give me motivation. Breathe out now, and then I'm a rival. Round up around, spit out all over. Rhyme like a rolling stone, calm in the crowd. Watch out the moon, that this till out. This what's this sound, and rhymes hold ground. So round up, don't ease the pace, cause enemies brutal. Moment of truth, there ain't no truth. You're the only one world, one love. But the battle goes on, shadows all mass destruction.
Oh yeah, down, down, baby, baby, down, oh yeah, down, baby, baby, down, oh yeah, down, baby, baby, down, oh yeah, down, baby, baby.
Hello. Today we are going to be talking about Sorc, just my generalized first impressions and initial thoughts on the class, kind of just my first reaction as well. I've been playing this character for about 3 days now, nothing extravagant, which is why it's my first ever impressions and nothing more than that. My opinion is probably subject to be changed by the end of the month period that I've been on this class, so that'll be, farther down the line whenever I finish that video. But for now, we are just in the learning stages and testing stage, and I just wanted to kind of talk about what I've learned so far and my thoughts and opinions from just my first impressions of this character. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the video here. So I want to start by saying that my opinion has genuinely changed. This is not as brain dead as I thought it was. I can wholeheartedly say that Striker and Mystic is much more brain dead than this character. You actually have to be very conscious of a lot of things when it comes to this character, like matchups for sure. If you're fighting Archer, Ranger, Zerker, any range class that has range pressure, you will have a very annoying time. If you're fighting Ninja, Kuno, Hash, DK, you will have a very annoying time. Like, this character has quite a few really obnoxious and annoying matchups that can be super fucking retarded to fight against. Striker, Mystic even. This character is a magic class, so you automatically do less damage to them, but not only that, but they're completely protected and have multiple ways to catch you, and you have almost no ways to catch them. Like, it actually amazes me how many bad matchups this character actually can have. I mean, like, the DK Hash Kuno thing is not nearly as bad because you can catch them just as easy as you can, like vice versa, right? But what makes them annoying is that they have abilities that render some of your shit useless. For example, Hash, DK, Kuno, Ninja, those 4 classes all have block jumps, which means if you iframe an Awakening, this forward guard becomes far more exploitable against those specific classes. Same thing against Zerker, Archer, Ranger. This forward guard becomes much more exploitable because if they break it from range pressure, then you don't have a consistent protected iframe in Awakening because your forward guard gets broken, which means after you iframe, you're going to go into a forward guard, which is non-existent because they blew it up. So just in general, this class has quite a few annoying matchups that can really fuck with your whole mentality about this class. And the generalized opinion of just iframe Grim, this is not a viable strategy. Like, that works against low tier guilds and people that don't have a lot of gear or just a lot of, I don't know, just skills in general. That will work against those players, but if you fight like actual geared players and people with, a brain, that is not going to work at all. Like, you're not going to walk up to a sacred member and just iframe Grim and it's going to work. That's just not what happens. Like, you're going to have not a fun time. Not to say that you can't use iframe Grim. Like, there's a reason that stigma and stereotype exists, and that's because it does work, but only against really low tier guilds, and if you have a lot of gear, you can get away with it in a lot more scenarios. I've learned that this class is very pub stompy, so like new players or people that are just getting into PvP or people that are not very good or not very geared, this is for the low tier, just kind of beat 'em up kind of character. You can really harass not so great players with this character and they won't generally have an answer for it. And when it comes to the stigma of iframe Grim, and that's all you really need. That comes from players that make a lot of noise on this class. I can wholeheartedly say I can name maybe 9 Sorcs off the top of my head that make a lot of noise and give this character a bad name. And when I say a bad name, I mean like they make it look broken. Example, Bape. Bape is an incredibly geared fucking like player in general. He has like every pen accessory in the game minus like a Devo. I think that's like all he's missing. But other than that, he's got like pen Tungrad rings, pen Tungrad belt, and he plays Sorc. And I think he plays Mystic too. But to put things into perspective, me and Franco combined could not kill this man. Even when we catch him and put his ass on the ground with a grab, on my Zerker and Franco's Warrior, we're both Giga geared. We're both 309 plus AP. Me and Franco could not kill Bape together. We just couldn't kill him. We put him on the ground. He resisted the second CC from literally both of us, and he got up and just iframed away and just ran. Like that's how insanely geared he is. That 2 people with 309 plus AP could physically not kill him. That is ridiculous. Now he himself, Bape speaking, like just him, he could walk up to almost any player in the game and beat the dog shit out of him just by using his gear. Not only is he a pretty good Sorc, but in general, his gear alone, he could be the worst player in the game and it would not make a difference because he is so fucking geared to the point where nobody in this game could probably consistently kill him other than maybe another Sacred member or Flow member or person with X amount of gear that has like, you know, accuracy accessories or good accuracy modifiers that could generally, you know, take him out. But me and Franco, literally probably like, you know, 1%ers in the game that have a lot of gear, and we still struggled to get him out. Neither one of us have accuracy accessories. We just have a lot of AP, but good fucking lord, I just couldn't scratch the guy. Every time I catch him, and I've even had him personally stand still, and I was able to test damage on him on both my Warrior and my Zerker, both with an accuracy offhand and whatnot, I can still barely get him under half health to like, you know, maybe 20%. Like that's me doing literally everything. So that's why this character has some bad stereotypes, is because most of the people that are making noise on this character are really good or really geared, and they are the loud minority that kind of define this class more so than anything else, if I had to guess. This is theory, of course, nothing definitive, but I really want to say that it's just a small minority that are really loud and make up the majority of the stereotypes when it comes to how broken Sorc is. But if you put this character in the hands of an average player or an average gear like department, I promise you they're not going to perform well against good players. So with that being said, let's get into sort of the mechanics here. All right, so let's talk about the iframes. Awakening iframe, trash. I've already explained how bad this can be. You can get exploited by block jumpers or people with range pressure that can blow up your guard. It's super not great. It's not to say you can't use it. It's good for lingering the forward guard so you can gain some stamina back. There's nothing wrong with that. But in general, the FG is the ultimate downfall of the Sorc, so you have to be very careful of that and conscious of your matchups of what they can do against an FG. Now in pre-awaken, you have very consistent iframes that you can just go super fast and iframe pretty much forever up until you're completely expended on resources. For example, I'm level 27 or 28 breath, so that means I can iframe roughly around 8 times before I run out of stamina. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I'm out of stamina. So there you go. I can iframe 8 times exactly before I am spent on stamina, and that's under the assumption that I am just doing it back to back without any in-between movement to regen stamina or whatever. Now, if I have 40 shards, that means I can iframe 4 more extra times after my expended stamina. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there you go. I could iframe literally 4 more times, and as long as I expended my shards, I can keep it going. Of course, that's not the most optimal thing to do. It's not very smart. You don't want to do that on a regular basis. You got to be very careful about that sort of thing. I will say that it is something that is very, usable. Don't get it twisted. It's not bad. It's not necessarily bad to do that, but you got to be wary of your resources. Now, also, we have an ability called Dark Trade, which allows us to pretty much regen 30 shards in an instant. So real quick, I will expend all my stamina and shards and then use Dark Trade and then continuously iframe. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, Dark Trade, 13, 14, and then 15. So 15 iframes in total if I use Dark Trade. Of course, that's super obnoxious and it's not exactly smart to do that, but just know that if a Sorc is running low on stamina and needs to expend their Dark Trade, they can use that to continuously iframe and keep going for at least a couple more times. Now, something interesting that's really obnoxious about this character is that when you use Dark Trade, right, it's a 25-second cooldown, super low in my opinion. I think it should be 35 if I'm being honest, but whatever. The idea here is that when you do use Dark Trade, you want to kill as much time as possible so that way you can continuously keep your stamina up and just sort of stall the match out till that timer is up so you can eventually gain more shards, because the shards are used for other things. Like, for example, if I want to charge Grim faster, I would have to do LT, RB, and A, or not LT, RB, I'm sorry, it's RT, RB, and A to charge it faster. So as you can see, Grim kind of slow charges, it's whatever, I get more damage if I use shards as well. So I need shards to charge it faster and to do more damage. So if I do RB, RTA, it charges faster and it does more damage. But that costs shards, so I have to kind of keep those up, not only just for spare iframes, but also if I happen to get a catch in between iframes or whatever, then I can expend some shards to do more damage with Grim. So your shard management is going to have to be on point. You have to be very conscious and aware of how many shards you have, and if you're expending too much on iframes, because that means you're not going to be able to do more damage with Grim, which means they might wake up from a combo if you're fighting against a player that might be semi-geared or even a lot geared, and you might need every bit of damage just to secure the kill. So that's how the iframes work. Awakening iframes, mediocre. I wouldn't really use them too often, aside from just FG linger and stamina regen. Pre-awaken iframes really good, but you will burn through stamina pretty fast, so you kind of have to weave moves in between to kind of gain a little bit of momentum, so that way you can get some kind of regen going, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's just how that will work. So let's talk about Sorc catches, because there's actually quite a lower amount of catches as I thought they were going to be. I thought Sorc just had a million ways to catch you, and honestly, she really doesn't. She actually struggles quite a bit against shield classes, very, very heavy block classes or mobile classes. Any class that can kite her or stay protected from her, she has a super hard time dealing with. For example, one of the main catches is going to be iframe turnback slash. This is unprotected unless you use the core skill, which most Sorcs don't use the core skill because they prefer Grim. I've messed around with both. Honestly, I leaned more heavily towards turnback slash because I think that is more my playstyle, because TBS in general is just mainly for a reactive turtley playstyle where they're more defensive and reserved, whereas Grim is the aggressive, I want to be in your face and kind of trade with you quite often. And I think TBS in general is the better pick, if I'm being honest, just for my play style. But anyway, for the majority of Sorcs, they're going to be using turnback slash, which is back RT. And if you don't use an iframe in between, you will slow cast it, which you will get this long animation, and it's mid. It's really bad. You don't want that. That's going to be horrible. So what Sorcs will do to make the animations faster is they will iframe and then TBS, which will go into a much quicker version of TBS. And then from there, they'll go into, Grim, Soul Reaper's Judgment, Swirling, and then Violation, whatever. They'll do the whole shebang, what to kill you. So that's something you have to be conscious of when you're fighting a Sorc, or if you plan to play a Sorc, you have to pretty much throw most of your CCs after an iframe, because everything is either slow animation or super delayed. And the one thing about turnback slash that you have to know is that it's like a small window that's gonna have a gap. So without the core skill, it's going to be iframe, turn back, unprotected, and then iframe again. So there's a gap in between the iframe and the next one, giant gap. So what some Sorcs will do to close the gap is they'll use Soul Reaper or Swirling. So they'll do something like boom, 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 and then they'll go into a super armor Swirling, which is pretty good. It's not horrible. To cover their tracks, so that way they don't get caught in the opening. They'll also use what is it, Soul Reaper's Judgment or Soul Reaper off of hotbar. So they'll go into like boom, boom, and then they'll do like something like this. But I think that one's a little, I don't really like that one because I feel like the gap's much bigger. I prefer Swirling because it's just much more consistent and you can go into it faster. Hotbar skills are just, I don't know, they're just mid. But you could also do a Rabomb as well. So you could go iframe, boom into this, then you can go into that, go to the side, and then go into a double float there, and then Soul Reaper, and then whatever, or Grim, and then Soul Reaper, whatever. So pretty much every CC will always be done after an iframe. That's always the case. Engulfing Shadows, same thing, iframe and then LTB. That's what you'll do. And most Sorcs will use Engulfing as a catch more than anything else because it's super armored. When turn back slash is not in core, it's unprotected, so it's risky to use that. So it's better for a Sorc to, use that for movement and then reposition and then go into Engulfing Shadow and then just, whatever. Like that's always going to be a thing that Sorcs would use more than TBS. TBS is kind of that ability where you would use it to punish someone. So for example, if this guy's a warrior and he runs at me and tries to grab me and I iframe behind him, then I would use TBS to catch him as a punish. That's kind of how I would use that. It's more of a reactive sort of thing. I wouldn't try and proactively fish for TBS. It's a bit risky. It's more of a reactive catch where somebody's gonna kind of do something stupid against you and you can reactively hit them with TBS. Whereas if you want to proactively chase someone, you're just kind of iframing around, dash into them, boom, catch them like that, go like that, and then look at that shit, boom, bam. I wasn't even looking at him and I fucking caught his ass. So yeah, that kind of thing. Engulfing Shadows, more of a proactive play style where you're kind of, pressuring them and you can kind of, get in their grill like that, bam, and then go into this and, just keep hitting them with all the sauce. Like just if you're trying to actually force a CC and proactively look for it, Engulfing Shadow is the better play to do. Not only that, but your other Rabomb as well from hotbar, it's also pretty good. It's like very much Engulfing Shadow-esque, but it's unprotected, so you got to be careful of that. But it's also another ability that you use after an iframe. So, you go like this, boom, and then you just go into, C-swap and Grim, whatever, and there you go. So those are kind of the catches for Sorc. Another thing that I want to talk about is Midnight Stinger. This is a very, very good ability. Lotus taught me this one where he likes to, literally fucking go like this behind him, catch like that, and then you would like fucking kick him or some shit. I don't know. I haven't quite mastered it, but it's so fucking dope where you literally just, fucking boom, 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 and then you go into this, then slap-a-roni, and it's tight as fuck, bro. It's tight. I fucking love it. But Midnight Stinger is a risk though. Even though it has like a little bit of movement, it's unprotected. So, from here to there, I could hit him with that and it's a stiff, but it's risky. So it's something that you'll have to be wary of. You could, be in iframing and awakening. And it's also something you can use to get back into pre. So like if I wanted to, like, let's say hit this guy, iframe here, boom, hit them like that, bam. And then we just C-swap back, slap-a-roni, and then hit him up. Something like that. They're not really expecting you to have that kind of range pressure where, you might, risk that unprotected movement. I mean, look at that. I wasn't even looking at him and I hit him somehow. Like that shit's crazy. It's a really fun CC. You can kind of play around with it, but you got to be really careful about that shit. And it's like, one of those very risky plays. It's tight when you hit it, but the times that you don't and you fuck it up, you're going to die on repeat. So those are kind of the CCs in a nutshell. The last thing I want to talk about is Grim, which is the elephant in the room. This ability is absolutely retarded in the way that you probably aren't thinking of. Most people think that Grim is the hardest hitting ability in the game. I can list off probably 10 abilities that are a lot more harder hitting than this, and that's just the truth. Grim is not that ridiculous in terms of damage. I mean, it hits, but it's not the hit. So what happens is that it has a super armor naturally while charging. Most people will run the core skill whenever you're running Grim in terms of like the actual like super armor. So when you cast it, it's actually going to be, you know, like the fully protected. So you go like this, cast, and you still have like the super armor. There's no gap. There's no gap at all. So if we remove the core skill, check this out. So we go like this, and you see there's a gap, and then you can literally fucking, you know, it's a gap. Which is why some people prefer turn backslash and etc. Because instead what'll happen is, you know, they'll go like, you know, this catch, and then you go into Grim, and it's like fully protected, and it's very good. So that's why TBS is pretty good as well, but that's for more of a like reactive play style if you're looking for that. But Grim Reaper's Judgment itself has super armor while charging, so the idea for this ability here is you either run the core skill to keep yourself fully protected when you go into Soul Reaper, so that way you have SA, because literally it's Soul Reaper into Swirling, and then, you know, from Grim, 3 SAs back to back that all do a lot of damage. Full protected combo, so super nice, no gaps, and you'll never get hit out of it if you run the core. However, the idea for this is the HP recovery. So the more people you hit, which you can hit up to 10 targets, you can genuinely trade some pretty heavy damage with Grim Reaper's Judgment. It's not the damage that makes this ability dumb as fuck, it's the fact that it has HP recovery and super armor if you run the core. So even when you get that swing off, you're getting a lot of HP back, you're getting that 100% crit that literally is going to hurt quite a bit, and then you're also fucking fully protected. Like, even if you, like, you know, for example, right, if you catch like 2 people, like, you don't even need that shit. You really don't even need the core Grim. You don't even need it, because if you've caught them, you don't need to trade it. Like, the only reason you would run it is if you're in large scale and you want to keep yourself fully protected in a combo. However, if you don't have the gear to survive in an SA, then it doesn't matter, because like what good is a full protected SA Grim if you die while you're charging, you know? Like, there's no point in that. So only, like, you know, geared Sorcs would benefit really from SA Grim, but that's sort of like nor here or there. I prefer TBS in general, because I will still die, because I run double distos and one's pen, so I only have 366 DP. And people with like 305 plus, if I hold Grim for even a little too long, I'm dead. So core TBS cover protection is much more reliable. Plus, when I go into Soul Reaper Swirling, that's double SA, and it's much more consistent for my playstyle, if I'm being honest. But Grim is really broken due to the HP recovery. That's kind of just what it is. The SA is nice and everything, but like the HP recovery is what makes it stupid. So yeah, that in turn kind of covers Sorc in general from just my general knowledge at the moment. There's a couple minor things, like, you know, the C swap, like FG cancel. So like you use darkness to go into pre, right, after an iframe. So if I want to like go into pre, I would iframe darkness C swap, and then, you know, it puts me in pre. And the reason that you do this is because it gives you that FG. So if you see, boom, C swap, and then iframe, there's a gap, right? I can cover that gap minorly with the darkness cancel. So I would iframe darkness, and boom, you see how I got that iframe or that FG for a split second, and then I ended up in pre. That is why you do the cancel, so that way you cover that gap a little bit. It's a really nice cancel. It's really good. And it's a bit, you know, complicated tech, but if you master it, it's really, really good for covering your ass in that like C swap. It's minor, and the gap is closed to a small rate, but I promise you it is very usable. But yeah, in turn, that kind of covers everything. There's not really much else to talk about. Sorc's an interesting character. It's not as brain dead as you think it is, but it does have some dumb aspects, and it's most definitely a pub stompy class for sure. We'll see what my opinions are on the class later on, but for now, they're pretty good. They're pretty positive. I will give Sorcs a lot more credit than they actually probably are getting on God. So yeah, that pretty much covers it. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.